What is going on, all you Minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me for part 2 of the comprehensive reading order of Batman in collected editions. So, please stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. Now remember, this is part 2 of 4 videos that will be out, and together we'll make the entire Batman comprehensive reading order. Again, I'm not going to be talking about things like Legends of the Dark Knight, or Gotham Knights, or Batman Confidential. I'm mainly focusing on Batman and Detective Comics, unless a storyline impacts something else later down the road. And before I even go any further, thank you so much to our patrons for voting for this. Every month I have a poll up on our Patreon where our patrons get to vote on what the next reading order should be. So today we're going to go from No Man's Land all the way up until Infinite Crisis. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And I realize I'm kicking off a book that happened through the pages of Legends of the Dark Knight. And I've talked about Shaman, I've talked about Venom and the importance of them. By the way, somebody pointed out that Batman Cult should be read, and I completely agree, before you read Death in the Family. So after year 1, you can read that. And after year 1, honestly, you can read the Neil Adams Omnibus if you want to. But the reason that I brought this up is because this book I hear no one talk about, and it is probably one of the best Batman stories I've ever read. It is Batman Going Sane, J.M. DeMatteis, Joe Staton, and it is pretty much the story of what happens if Joker gets his sanity back, right? And of course, much like everything else in the pages of superheroes, nothing remains the same, but it is such a unique take on the character. I loved it, and I want to share it with you all. It is called Batman Going Sane. Next up is Grant Morrison's DC 1 Million. It's been available in trade paperback, but the Omnibus is the only place that you can get Detective Comics 1 million, Batman 1 million, Nightwing 1 million, Robin 1 million, and that is the main reason why I put this here. It's not necessary to read, but there's a lot of fun stories that happen within these pages. Kind of like the 0 Hour. Next up is an important book that I'm not sure why this was not collected in the pages of Batman No Man's Land, but this is Batman Harley Quinn. This has come out in hardcover. This is a graphic novel. There's been collections just called, if you look under Batman Harley Quinn, you'll find it, and it's probably the best collection. It has like Arkham Asylum Harley Quinn, and this story, and a couple of other stories that focus on Harley Quinn. But this introduces us to the character of Harley Quinn in the pages of Batman, so that she is now part of the DC lore. She was a character that was created for the Batman animated series. She did appear earlier in a Batman Adventures comic. I think it was number 16, but that wasn't really canon. It doesn't really exist in the Batman universe, whereas this is her first real appearance in the Batman comics, and she plays a big role in No Man's Land, so I'm not sure why they didn't include this. So here we are, No Man's Land, Volume 1. Now, when you're looking for these, make sure you look for the ones that retail for $29.99. There were a set of previously released trade paperbacks. There were 5 of them, and they were incomplete. They didn't collect everything, and I just said that this didn't collect the Batman Harley Quinn, but keep that in mind. This kicks off the storyline where Gotham is just locked off from the rest of the United States because the U.S. just cannot step in and help anymore. Batman is missing, so there is no Batman, so it's up to the detectives. It's up to the Bat family, which, by the way, has now grown. That's one thing I didn't mention in my first video, because I have a reading order of Nightwing and I have a reading order of Batgirl. I kind of tell you when to start reading those. But by now, the Bat family is huge. So during this time, you have Dick Grayson, who's the original Robin, has now grown up and become Nightwing and has his own ongoing series, as well as appearing in pages of Teen Titans, or Titans at the time. You also have Tim Drake, who is the 3rd Robin, and he has his own ongoing series. You have Azrael right here, Agent of the Bat, written by Dennis O'Neil, has his own ongoing series. Barbara Gordon, because of the events that happened in The Killing Joke, has now become more of a behind-the-scenes player, known as the Oracle. And she's worked with the Suicide Squad, and of course runs the Birds of Prey, who have their own ongoing series. You have Spoiler as well, Stephanie Brown, who starts off like an anti-hero a little bit towards the beginning of her first appearance, but by now is a friend to Robin and the rest of the Bat family. And of course Alfred. You still have Alfred, And Harold, I mentioned Harold the last time. Leslie Tompkins, all these characters, Jim Gordon. Jim is now married, by the way, to Sarah Essen, the lady that he was having an affair with in the original Year One. However, this is where it gets confusing because of all these reboots. In New 52 and in Rebirth, that marriage never took place because Jim Gordon during that time is a little bit younger. And that's why these things are a little bit confusing. But, so yes, you have the Huntress and Black Canary running around with the Birds of Prey, who is kind of being run by, of course, Barbara Gordon, going by Oracle. And here's Volume 2. No mention yet of an omnibus coming out, but we are getting an omnibus of the Road to No Man's Land, so there's always hope. During this particular volume, we get to meet a new character who is, well, let's say, who will play a big role in the Bat family again, so much so that she will have her own series, and that is the new Batgirl. At first, Barbara Gordon was really pissed off that somebody else was walking around in the Batgirl outfit, and she thought that Bruce had approved it, and I'm not going to reveal who that is. If you want to see who that is, go watch the Batgirl reading order, but this is both where she makes her first appearance and her first appearance as Batgirl, and there's my girl, Helena, the Huntress. Batman No Man's Land. So obviously from the cover, you can tell that Batman's trying to come back and reclaim his city that has been destroyed ever since the Cataclysm. But really, like I mentioned, all of this starts in Contagion. I mentioned that in part 1. Now, right here, all of this stuff has now been written by Dennis O'Neil, Greg Rucka, who I mentioned got his first start in the Road to No Man's Land, Kelly Puckett, and of course Chuck Dixon. Those are still the main creators behind this book. By now, it's such a cool storyline because the city is divided and there's different territories. So like Black Mask is claiming a territory, Two-Face is claiming a territory, the Gotham City Police Department is claiming a territory, and at first there's no Batman territory, right? Even though the Bat family's still there. But slowly but surely, like, the territories are claimed back, and Gotham starts becoming a city again. There's a wonderful issue that takes place here where you realize why Batman is the hero of Gotham. And it's an issue where Superman tries to come in and help people, but realizes with his unlimited power, even he can't do anything. And here is Batman No Man's Land Volume 4. This is the finale that wraps up the No Man's Land with a new status quo. As a matter of fact, I think the next arc after this is called The New Gotham Years. Oh, that's Damian Scott. I've always been a fan of his artwork. Oh yeah, I forgot Catwoman. Yes, Catwoman is a Bat ally, even though she plays this anti-hero, Scott McDaniel, doing what he does best, Nightwing issues. Love to see an omnibus of Nightwing by Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel one day. But in this story, you get this heartbreaking scene between the Joker and somebody else. Like, there's a horrible thing that happens here that makes some of the good guys almost snap again at the Joker, because the Joker is such a horrible, horrible villain. But I'm not gonna reveal what happens. Just know that it's pretty heartbreaking and changes some of the characters forever, like the Joker always does. And taking us to Batman Ed Brubaker Volume 1. There's only 2 volumes of this, and you figured Volume 1 and 2 can be read side by side, but no, we don't want to make it that easy. So now Scott McDaniel has left the Nightwing book, and he's gone into the flagship title of Batman. He is joining Ed Brubaker, and I'm sure if you're not new to this channel, you know who Ed Brubaker is. One of my favorite writers of the crime noir. He went on with Greg Rucka to do the Gotham Central comic book, which is great. And I know I'm going to be asked, when do you read that? And honestly, that book stands alone on its own so much that you can read it anytime you want to. All you have to know is just that Batman is the hero of Gotham City, and that's pretty much it. The one thing I will say about this particular volume, by the way, is that it contains Batman Our Worlds at War #1. That is a big crossover event with Superman. As a matter of fact, it's a big DC event. And the best way to read it, because you all know I love sneaking books in here, so people that take the snapshots of the very beginning thumbnail, don't get this kind of info. But anyway, this is the Our Worlds at War huge trade paperback. It's not the best built trade paperback, but if you want to know more about Our Worlds at War, this is the best way to get it. I think this retails for 25 bucks. Look how many pages that is. And then back to this. But yes, this is the very beginning of Ed Brubaker's run. And like I said, Volume 2 doesn't happen next, because you want to bounce back between Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka takes over Detective Comics, and Ed Brubaker takes over Batman. Now, the one thing I will say about this particular volume is this is the introduction of Sacha Bordeaux, who plays a big role in Batman's life, and eventually in the whole DC universe. He ends up during Infinite Crisis, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the main thing is that she ends up being part of the Checkmate comic, or the early aughts Checkmate comic, rather, because I know there was an original one. But this is Batman by Greg Rucka, but they call it New Gotham instead of Batman by Greg Rucka. Not sure. I guess Ed Brubaker has a bigger selling name. And of course, what is Batman without the next crossover? I have no idea why Officer Down was not collected in those trades. This is part of New Gotham. And because I guess this crosses over with Catwoman and Birds of Prey and Robin. Yes, and Nightwing. But yes, it is the story of how Commissioner Gordon is gunned down. And Batman, I mean, this is his best friend, right? Well, I guess Alfred might get a little jealous. And so would Dick Grayson. But he sees Dick Grayson more like a son. Anyway, Batman has to solve this crime. Who the hell shot Commissioner Gordon? And like I mentioned, now we have a new Batgirl. That lady right there. Batman False Faces. This is the hardcover edition, but it's also available in trade paperback. I think there's a deluxe edition that just came out recently. This is Brian K. Vaughan bringing back Matches Malone. Right, how do you fool a bunch of villains into thinking you're not Bruce Wayne? You stick a match in your mouth and you put sunglasses on and grow this sleazy little mustache, and you become Matches Malone. Anyway, Scott McDaniel still drawing this stuff. And as you can probably tell when I put the contents at the bottom, that these are kind of everywhere, right? These collections. The reason I put this here is because this collects Batman 588 to 590. But then it also collects Detective Comics 787, and then of course the Wonder Woman issues. The very last story that's in here is really cool because it's a mystery. And I remember that Brian K. Vaughan, yeah, this one here. Brian K. Vaughan was talking about giving somebody some kind of prize if they figure out the mystery of who this character is. I don't know if anybody ever did or not. Batman New Gotham Volume 2. It is still Greg Rucka writing this story. And as you can tell, the colors are even different in the Detective Comics. They seem to have this like one-tone colors of blue, green, red, yellow, as you can see. I kind of dug that. I love that because it makes it so much noir, right? Now, one thing between Batman and this is that Detective Comics focuses more on Batman and less on the Bat family. And it focuses more right now, during this time, in his relationship with Sasha as he is training her. Because, obviously, like everybody that he runs into in his life finds out who he is. He's not very good at keeping secrets. Alright, Batman Joker's Last Laugh. Why do I have this here? Well, it's a 6-issue miniseries, and they did such a horrible job collecting this. I'm so pissed that DC never properly collected this, because I made my own. Right here. My own custom years ago. And this collects all of Detective, all of Nightwing, all of Batman. That is part of this storyline right here. Beautiful cover by Brian Boland. I don't know why DC never collected it this way. They just decided to collect the 6-issue series. But something happens here that involves Nightwing and the Joker, but not going to spoil that. But anyway, this is where I suggest reading it. And finally, we get to Volume 2, which, when you look at the contents here, and then look at the contents of the next 2 books I'm going to show, you're going to be wondering what the hell is wrong with me. Why do I have this book? Because it looks really pretty on the shelf, right? Because it's Volume 2. Look at that spine. Anyway, this is Batman by Ed Brubaker, Volume 2. It's the last volume. Pretty much the storyline that kicks off Batman Bruce Wayne Murderer is found through these pages here. And that is your next crossover that we're going to be talking about. And at this time, I just want to remind you all to hit that like button if you're enjoying what you're seeing. And don't forget to check out our Patreon if you want to take a part in voting for the next upcoming reading orders. Batman Bruce Wayne murder. What the heck could have possibly happened to make people think that Batman killed somebody from his past? It's an ex-girlfriend that is found shot to death in the Wayne Manor. And of course, Bruce Wayne is the person that's found guilty. So he is arrested, and now it is up to the Bat family to figure out who the real murderer of this character was. Again, you've got Ed Brubaker, Greg Rucka writing most of the stuff, but it goes all the way into the pages of Gotham Knights. It kicks off with a Batman 10-cent adventure, by the way, this very first issue. And that was kind of a gimmick by DC to get people to buy Batman again. It only cost, that's right, a dime, 10 cents. But again, it crosses over into the pages of Birds of Prey and Robin. So this was originally collected in a series of 2 trade paperbacks, but this is the one that you want because this is the one that's more complete. So if Bruce Wayne was a murderer, now he's a fugitive. These titles sometimes give away what happens. But I'm going to try to be careful, when I always do this, not to talk about spoilers, even though these stories are hella long time ago. So this is Fugitive, pretty much the exact follow-up to the storylines that happen within the pages of Murder. The Bat family's trying to clear Bruce of murder. There's Harold and Jean-Paul Valley. Thank you to those that messaged me and commented on my video saying I pronounced it Gene. What the hell is wrong with me? I guess I was just too busy focusing on the video. I had already shot 2 hours of it, and I was tired. I don't know why the heck I called him Gene, but it is Jean-Paul Valley. I like that this trade paperback, this was originally released as 3, but this trade paperback actually has more issues in it, and it wraps up a storyline that the original 3 trade paperbacks did not, so I'm glad that they did that. So, Batman, Death and the Maidens. There's the deluxe edition of this, as well as trade paperbacks. And even though it only contains 1 issue of Detective Comics in here, it is important to talk about this. However, this contains a little bit of a spoiler, but I have to mention it because in the part 3, there's a title that has a spoiler in it. So if you want to skip this and go to Hush, please feel free to do that now. So the basic premise behind this storyline is my favorite villain, Ra's al Ghul, is dying. And he makes Bruce Wayne, or Batman, of course because he knows who Batman is, because Ra's al Ghul is freaking awesome, an offer to help him save his life. And it's in exchange so Bruce Wayne could see his or speak to his parents again. Because, he has the Lazarus pit that can bring people back from the dead. So it's a pretty interesting story. But by the end, Raj unfortunately doesn't get what he wants. And as of now, Raj is dead. Taking us to Batman Hush. I have no idea what else I can say about this story that others haven't. Other than, holy crap, if you've not read this, this is a great way to get into Batman. This is Jeff Loeb, joined by Jim Lee, the phenomenal Jim Lee, and Scott Williams. And it is the story of Batman and one of his friends, Tommy, who was his childhood friend. This is Tommy's first appearance, by the way. And how they're reconnecting again. And every issue has 1 or 2 villains in it from Batman's Rogue Gallery. It is freaking beautifully drawn. We are introduced to a new villain named Hush. And there's a mystery behind that, of course. But we're also reintroduced to a character from Batman's past. Someone that we thought was long gone. And who is going by the name of the Red Hood. And if you watch part 1 of this video, you know that Joker, well, maybe before he became the Joker, was known as the Red Hood. Just a thug. Man, look at this beautiful artwork. But yeah, this storyline changes everything. This is a wonderful story. If you've not read it, it's available in trade paperback, hardcover editions. This beautiful Absolute. It was supposed to be an omnibus, but we're not going to talk about that. Batman Broken City, available in deluxe edition as well as trade paperbacks. This is the team of Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo, and it is the same team that did the storyline of 100 Bullets, one of my favorite comics, and Eduardo Rizzo happens to be one of my favorite artists. But this is Broken City, and it's pretty much the story of a girl that is found dead in a landfill. So Batman just dives his whole life into this case, trying to figure out who the murderer is. So it's one of these crime noir stories that a lot of people really love, and I don't know, maybe I loved 100 Bullets so much that this one was kind of a letdown. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But it is Broken City. Batman, the Man Who Laughs. Now, one thing I will say is this is where I put this book. But a lot of people commented on my first video, why wasn't this included after year one? And technically, this is a flashback storyline. So it is like an early meeting between Batman and this character known as the Joker, who is new to Gotham City. But this also collects issues of Detective Comics. And the reason I put it here instead of right after year one is because I wanted people to get to know the character of the Joker a little more through those pages of Caped Crusader and the Dark Knight Detective. Because by the time you get to this, I think it impacts you a lot more if you're already familiar with the way the Joker acts. That way, when you get to this, it completely makes sense. This is Ed Brubaker, by the way. This is also available, I don't know if it's out yet or not, in Deluxe Edition. But that's the reason why I put it here, right after Broken City. Batman as the Crow Flies. A very underrated trade paperback that is only available in trade paperback. It slid under the radar for a lot of people. This is Judd Winnick. This is his first book that he wrote for Batman Comics. Judd Winnick, of course, at the time was writing Green Arrow, but he went and took over Batman. So much so that he reintroduced another character again here in a little bit. But this is his first storyline. I know it's long out of print. I'm not really sure if this one's hard to find or not. But this is where it goes. This is where you need to read it. And it is just a pretty awesome story between Scarecrow and Batman. And then we are seeing the return of another character. Or actually a prelude to the return of another character. But not before we have another crossover. Batman War Games. This goes and kicks off because of the success of Batman the 10-cent adventure. This kicks off with Batman the 12-cent adventure. And this goes through the pages of Batgirl and Batman and Gotham Knight, Catwoman, Detective Comics. And by now, the spoiler, because of things that have happened, Stephanie Brown is the new Robin. And this is the storyline where she becomes the new Robin. So, well, okay. Aside of the Dark Knight Returns, she's the first female Robin. But there we have Stephanie Brown. Now, she doesn't get to be Robin for very long because, of course, Tim Drake comes back and becomes Robin. But this is a huge all-out war in Gotham City. And the mastermind behind this is a character known as Black Mask. And here is Volume 2. And like I mentioned, a huge gang war in Gotham City affecting all the characters that live there, even all the way up to Bloodhaven. There is something that happens towards the end of this. I think it's in the War Drums issue, that there was a character that was written that I did not like the turn that they made for the character. And I know those people that are watching this know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've read this, man, that pissed me off. Like, there's no way that character would have done that. And, but that's okay, because that's been retconned now, because, damn it, I hate talking about spoilers when I can't. So never mind. If you ever read this, towards the end, there's a Batman ally that does something that you're like, what? There's no way she would have done that. But anyway, Batman War Games. Now, in the midst of all of Batman War Games, we have Batman Hush Returns. So some of these issues are already in there. And I said I would not talk about Gotham Knights, but I decided to sneak this one in here just because I've always been a fan of the character of Hush. And this is one of those stories that people either love or hate, because it also dives deep into the past of the Joker. And that's Batman Hush Returns. By the way, the ending of this was never collected, so that kind of ticks me off. Batman Under the Hood. This is the Judd Winnick, Doug Mahnke storyline, and I'm sure you may have seen the movie but we have a new Red Hood in Gotham City. And hell, Red Hood is a comic book, and I'm sure people already know his identity, but just in case, spoilers. So if you don't want to know about the Red Hood, stop watching here and go to the City of Crime book. Alright, Red Hood, let's talk about it. It is the return of Jason Todd. Damn it, my book almost closed on me. Good thing those people that are skipping the spoiler part didn't watch that. But Jason Todd comes back. How? Well, I'm not going to reveal that. But he is back. The second Robin that got killed by Joker now took the pre-Joker identity, even though I have no idea how he would know that the Joker was known as the Red Hood back then. But now he is running a game on Gotham. And actually, he plays part of the War Game storyline, too. Let's look at the next book. Taking us to Batman Under the Red Hood. Again, Doug Mahnke providing most of the artwork, with the exception of the annual. Now, the annual has something wonderful in here. And again, spoilers, but I have to show this page. The annual shows how Jason Todd came back, and I'm not going to reveal how exactly. But I want to show you this one page that was supposed to be an alternate page to A Death in the Family. Remember when I said we got to vote whether Jason Todd lives or dies? Well, Jim Aparo, my favorite definitive Batman artist, drew an alternate page. What if Jason Todd had lived? That can be found here in the pages of the annual that are mainly drawn by Shane Davis, but here's the original Jim Aparo page. This is after he passed away, and it's just been recolored to update it, but this is what would have happened if Jason Todd had lived. And I always thought that was really cool that they added that page in here. But there's a cliffhanger here where something blows up, and it leads directly into Infinite Crisis. And here we have City of Crime. This is the deluxe edition, previously available in trade paperback. And I've done an overview of this if you want to go back and watch it to know the detailed information about this. This reminds me of Broken City and a very similar crime, like somebody is killing children, and, you know, Batman is like, I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure out what's happening to my city. This doesn't happen in Gotham. So that's primarily what this is. This also leads directly into Infinite Crisis. And here it is. Of course, I talk about this book all the time, but that's because it's important in just about everything. Batman plays a huge role in the OMAC project. So he plays a role in Countdown, the OMAC project, and of course Infinite Crisis. So much so that by the end of Infinite Crisis, spoilers if you don't want to know what happens to Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, just in case. It's the last book I'm going to talk about, but this is 52. This is the weekly book. So after Infinite Crisis, the Holy Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, decided to take a break. A year off from being superheroes. So it's up to other heroes to step in that year. That's what this series was mainly about. So we're introduced to the character of Batwoman by now. And of course, Renee Montoya playing a bigger role. But yeah, this is pretty much it. So when we come back, the next episode, we'll kick it off with 1 year later. So a year after Infinite Crisis, what's going on in Gotham and who is behind the cowl. Well, I won't spoil that, but that's what we'll be talking about. Now, most of these books can be purchased from our sponsor,
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off the cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. And check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. And for you Minties, Cheap Graphic Novels is running a special promotion. If you're a first-time customer, let them know you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that was part 2 of 4 of the Batman Comprehensive Reading Order. Please leave those comments down below. It has been a blast so far making these videos and making sure I have each of these books in the order that I think is best fit. There are plenty of lists out there. This just happens to be mine. I would love to know the way that you have your books on your shelf. Maybe wait until part 4 is out. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. Please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications. Check out our Patreon if you want to be part of the voting every month, and we have different tiers. It's a great way to support the channel if you can do so, and thank you to our existing patrons. And remember, everybody, please stay healthy, stay safe out there, and much love to all of you.